Thanks for joining today. I'm really excited. I'm Michelle from the Trav Nav. The Trav Nav is a luxury travel blog that I founded to give people information about destinations to travel to and tips and tricks for travel. But since many of us aren't traveling right now, I thought it might be fun to bring a taste of vacation to each of our homes. And one way to do that is through food and cocktails. So earlier this week, I put out a poll and asked people what they wanted, if they wanted food or a cocktail recipe, and 75% to 25% said they wanted a cocktail recipe. So today we are going to be making a cocktail, and the cocktail we'll be making today is, voila, a watermelon margarita. I'm really excited about the watermelon margarita because it tastes good, but I picked it for two reasons. The first reason I picked it is because this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and the watermelon cocktail is pink in support, so I thought that would be fun. My mom and several of my family members are breast cancer survivors, so I always like to put the word out, make sure you get checked in support of breast cancer awareness. And the second reason is I wrote a blog post about the best places to stay in La Jolla. One of those places is the Valencia Hotel. It's also called the Pink Lady. And so in honor of my blog post about La Jolla and breast cancer awareness, we'll get started and we'll be making these delicious watermelon margaritas. Okay, so the first thing you'll need for your watermelon margarita, hey Linz, is a recipe. So I got my recipe from Certified Pastry Aficionado. And the recipe makes 4 cocktails, but you can divide it and make just one if you want. But cocktails are really good, so I doubt you're going to be doing that. You'll probably want more. I've already made a few today, so since I'm on my second batch, I'm going to be having the recipe here, but you can go ahead and do whichever fractions make the most sense for you. So I picked up some watermelons earlier today. I picked them up from Trader Joe's. Because watermelons aren't exactly in season right now, they only had these mini watermelons, which are actually perfect because one mini watermelon is the perfect amount of watermelon that you need for this recipe. I also learned today that in order to pick a watermelon, you want one that has like these nice like yellow spots because it shows it's been sitting on the ground for a while and it's been ripe. You also want one that's a little bit dull. You don't want the shiny ones. I know a lot of us sometimes want those things that are shiny and sparkly, but in this case for a watermelon, that's the exact opposite that you want. You want one that's a little bit dull. The other thing you want to make sure is that your watermelon is generally the same shape and that you can knock on it and it sounds like it's hollow. So that's how you pick out a watermelon. When you're making the watermelon cocktails, one of the things you want to do to make it easy for cutting is you just want to put it down and you want to cut the edges off first so that you get rid of the rind. It took me a little while to do this just because I'm slow, so I'm going to skip that step here because I already have half the watermelon kind of already peeled for you so you can see what it looks like. This is half of one of those mini Trader Joe's watermelons. So what I'm going to do now is just you can cut it up pretty easily and quickly. You can just slice it through, and then once you do that, your next step would be to pop your watermelon in a blender. So once you put it in the blender and it's all blended up nice and smooth, the next thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to put it through a sieve. So you might want to pick up a strainer, kind of like one of these. And the way I used it is I just put the strainer on top of another cup and after blending up the watermelon mixture, I poured it in here. Again, it took me a little bit of time and the blender was really loud, so I figured I'd save that step and just kind of quickly walk you through what I did. So that's what I did here. So if you're using the whole watermelon, like the one I just showed you, the mini ones, then you can, once you're done, it'll look a little bit like this. So I didn't have a pitcher that was the right size, so this is my French press. So here we go. So now that I have the watermelon mixture and I have the watermelon, the next thing that we're going to do is you need tequila. So in this recipe, we're going to be using a Blanco tequila, which is like this. It's Patron Silver. It's clear. A Blanco or silver tequila has not been aged. And so the taste of this type of tequila often is a little bit stronger. It has a stronger profile flavor. So we'll be using this Patron Silver today. In this particular recipe, there is a ton of tequila. So please do not have this recipe and drink and drive. So in this recipe, what we did is you'll need 8 ounces of tequila. Again, I'm gonna half it because I already made some of this batch earlier. And if you're measuring, an ounce is generally the size of a shot glass. Or if you're like my husband, you just keep counting. So as you count 1, 2, 3, that's how he measures out how much he pours in his cocktails. And that would be why people keep coming back, because we serve some pretty strong cocktails here. It's fun. So I have poured the Patron Silver in here. And then what else we're gonna do, this recipe calls for 4 ounces of triple sec. Now, I actually prefer Patron Citronge to triple sec. I just prefer the flavor a little bit more. So if you're interested, this is what the bottle looks like. It's a little less sweet, and it has a really nice flavor. So this is what I use instead. You can just substitute it out 1 for 1. It's super easy. So we'll use the Patron Citronge, and I already poured that in my mixture here. So what I'll do is I'm going to take the tequila and I'm going to pour it in my watermelon mix. So that's good and in there. The next thing that we need to do is you need to mix your lemons with your agave. Sorry, not lemons. You need to mix your limes with your agave. So you definitely want to use fresh limes. They're much better than from the bottle. It's great if that's all you have in your house. That works too, no problem. But if you have time and you can pick up the fresh limes, I suggest it. So I squeezed out fresh lime juice here, almost all of it, but I'm just gonna squeeze one last half of lime. And with these these limes from Trader Joe's, basically 1 lime equals 1 ounce of lime juice. So I've got it in there, so I squeezed it in. Now the next thing that we're gonna do is you need your agave. Sometimes recipes call for sugar. I'm not a big fan of adding sugar, like pure sugar, to my drinks, so you can also swap out sugar for agave, which is something that I like to do. So this recipe, because I halved it, I only need 1 teaspoon of agave, but if you're doing the full recipe, you do 2 teaspoons of agave. And the reason why I'm pouring it into the lime juice first is that you want to make sure that the agave dissolves. You don't want a big clump of it in your margarita mix. Instead, you just want it nice and dissolved. Just give it a mix a little bit around just like this. And once it's good and dissolved, all you have to do is take your mix. Here's your margarita mix. And just pour it right in. It's just that easy. So now you go ahead and give it a little swirl. Now this recipe calls for a little bit of salt to bring out the flavor of the watermelon. However, I decided to salt the rim. So as you can see, the rim here is salted. So I'm gonna skip the salt step just because I'm not a huge salt person. But I will show you instead how to salt the rim for our watermelon margaritas. So let me just move a couple of these things out of the way. Move this over here. Okay, so what I did is to make my life easy, I just picked up margarita salt from Bevmo today, super easy. I popped it open, whoops, there we go, and it's got a nice amount of salt in here to make it easy for us. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take my glass, which is, oh, I left it over here. Take my glass, and I'm gonna take a fresh lime and run it over the edge with some gentle pressure of my glass. Now I'm doing this to get the rim just a little bit wet so that I can add the salt, because I want to give it this nice coating on the outside. So now that my rim's got enough lime juice on the outside, I'm just going to take my salt here. Hopefully you guys can see this. Okay, you can't. So I'll just hold it here. So make the salt kind of flat, and then I just take the rim of the glass, drop it down into the salt, and just move it around just so that I get enough salt on the rim to make it nice and pretty. So this is how the rim of the salt glass comes out. It's pretty thick. So I can put my salt mixture away. And now I'm going to add in a couple ice cubes because who wants a warm cocktail? That's never any good. Drop in my ice cubes. 4 ice cubes, it seems pretty good. Take my watermelon mix, just give it one more stir for good measure. Drop this down here. And I'm gonna pour my drink. So this would be our watermelon cocktail. Now, just to give it a little extra flair and for some garnish, I'm gonna take one of the limes that I've cut into slices, just slice the center of it just a little bit so that it makes a little kind of opening so that I can put it on the side of my glass. So this is our watermelon margarita. Oh wow, this is really good. So it's actually so good that I see why people would make all 4 of these cocktails and not just one, because it's delicious. Even with all the salt. I hope you guys had fun with me today. I know I did. This is a lot of fun making the watermelon margarita. And again, just if you join late, we chose the watermelon margarita because it's in support of breast cancer awareness. So make sure that you get checked and you talk to your doctor. And also, it's been a lot of fun for me making this. So I thought next week we bring a taste of vacation into your homes again. So I would love to hear what kind of recipe you want me to make next week, and keep an eye out for a poll that I'll be doing so you can get involved and vote on what you prefer. So don't forget to check out my travel blog. It's thetravnav.com. And this has been really fun. Stay safe, don't drink and drive, and cheers. Thanks for joining.